The story starts off with a legendary hitman named Juzo, who is making his way over to the location of his latest targets. He was told ahead of time that there would only be about 1 or 2 guards on site, but when he actually arrives, he is surprised to find a large number of them standing around. Even so, Juzo keeps his cool without even flinching, and simply reaches into his pocket and pops a cigar into his mouth, and when one of them steps forward and questions him about who exactly he is, Juzo quickly draws his gun and shoots him down right on the spot without any hesitation. The rest of them all move in together and try to attack Juzo in response, but he simply pulls out his 9mm and takes them all down one after the other without breaking so much as a sweat. One of the main targets immediately recognizes Juzo as the legendary hitman who is known for being willing to kill absolutely anyone as long as the price being offered is right, so he immediately heads straight for the safe, grabs as many valuable items as he possibly can, and then starts running for his life. But Juzo spots him making his move and sticks his foot out just in time to trip the guy and make him go crashing hard to the floor. Juzo calmly corrects the man, telling him that he only goes after people that he personally deems as truly irredeemable and beyond any saving. The man scrambles and turns back around and very quickly tries to pull out a gun and shoot Juzo, but Juzo is already standing right behind him and drops him instantly with a single powerful punch straight to the gut that knocks him out completely cold. After everything is taken care of, the disposal unit arrives to handle the cleanup, and outside the building Juzo scolds his apprentice, Nakoda, for previously telling him that there would only be about 1 or 2 people on site when there were actually 25 of them waiting inside. Nakoda acknowledges his mistake and owns up to it, but he also cannot help himself from expressing just how genuinely impressed he is by the fact that Juzo was somehow able to take down all 25 of those guys completely on his own. The two of them then take a closer look inside the briefcase that the man had been carrying when he tried to run, and they find what appears to be some kind of wasp nest. Juzo does not really think too much of it at the time though, since he honestly has no idea what it even is or what it could mean. The next day, he heads back to his home, and while he is getting on the elevator, a young kid accidentally bumps right into him. The kid takes one good look at Juzo's intimidating face and immediately gets frightened and runs away from him as fast as he possibly can. Juzo does not really think too much of it or let it bother him all that much, since he has honestly never really been all that good with kids in the first place. He thinks to himself that if only he had been better at that kind of thing back then, maybe his family life might have actually turned out the way it was supposed to and actually worked out for the better. But then he reminds himself that it wasn't entirely his fault either, because the truth is that he and his ex-wife simply did not have a single thing in common with each other, not even one single shared interest between them to build anything on. His work as a hitman is honestly all he really has going for him in his life, and even that is not something he does out of any real passion or genuine enjoyment. He does it simply because he happens to be very good at it, and for no other reason beyond that. He thinks it all over quietly to himself and slowly comes to the realization that he's lived a really boring life. Just then, Nakoda arrives at his apartment, so Juzo goes over to speak with him, but that is when a wasp suddenly flies close and stings him right on the neck. It sends a sharp surge of pain tearing through his body, and after a good while of wailing in agony, he eventually collapses to the floor. A little while later, he wakes up in a lab that is being run by his ex-wife, Iri. The zoo is the assassin company that Juzo works for, and he is currently in their science division. Iri explains that the cause of his blackout was wasp venom, and Juzo puts it together immediately because he did hold onto that wasp nest from his last job. She then hands him a mirror and tells him that she only just found out about this herself, but the company his target had been dealing with was a firm that also carries out research into genetic manipulation in living organisms. In other words, what stung him was no ordinary wasp. Juzo takes a look at himself in the mirror and is completely shocked to see that he looks a full 20 years younger than he did before. He asks Iri whether he will ever be able to change back, but she is not certain herself, so all they can really do for now is keep a close eye on how things develop. Just then, Juzo gets a call from his boss, and when he speaks, his boss is immediately taken aback by how high his voice sounds now. Juzo admits that things have gotten pretty strange, but tells him he can still go ahead and carry out whatever job he has lined up for him next. His boss figured he would say exactly that, so he tells him he has the perfect assignment for him. He wants wants him to attend a middle school. Juzo is instantly thrown off by hearing that. His boss goes on to explain that he is thinking of enrolling his daughter in a particular private middle school this coming year, so he wants Juzo to slip in there and investigate the place from the inside. Juzo is completely outraged by this because it sounds far more like babysitting than anything close to actual assassinating. But Eri thinks it actually sounds about right, since Juzo dropped out of middle school himself. Juzo goes back and forth on it for a little while, but the moment he hears he is going to be paid very handsomely for it, he agrees on the spot. A few days later, before Juzo's first day of school, Nakoda puts together a pair of glasses fitted with built-in cameras and microphones so he can assist Juzo during the mission from the outside if he runs into any trouble. Before Juzo heads out, he takes a moment to acknowledge just what a disaster this whole situation is, because he is now going to be surrounded by kids all day and he genuinely cannot stand kids. But he goes along with it anyway since it is for the money, and beggars simply cannot be choosers. That morning at school, all the new students are doing their introductions one by one, and while everyone else handles it just fine, Juzo delivers the most painfully awkward introduction anyone has ever seen, which effectively kills any chance he had with the girls in his class since they now think he is completely weird. Though one blonde girl in his class seems to find him oddly interesting. When he gets back home, Nakoda prepares him a rice omelet and Juzo is genuinely surprised by how delicious it turns out to be. That aside, Nakoda brings up just how awful his introduction was earlier that day and also reminds him that he needs to keep his real identity completely hidden at all times and that he cannot afford to cause any trouble because that could easily get him suspended or even expelled. The next day at school, lessons get underway and Juzo is not the least bit impressed at first because he's a middle-aged man who has already been married and has a daughter of his own, so there is no way anything this school has to offer is going to fascinate him. But he is quickly proven wrong when he stumbles across the concept of negative numbers. He has spent his entire life assuming that numbers only ever went upward and had absolutely no idea that negative numbers even existed, so discovering them genuinely captivates him. As a kid, he never received any kind of traditional education and was instead placed directly into the organization's training, so getting to experience learning things like this is something he never had the chance to do before. By the end of the day, lessons wrap up and Juzo cannot help but feel a real sense of excitement because he now realizes there is an entire world of things he never knew that he actually has the chance to learn. That night after school, Nakoda walks into his room and is surprised to find Juzo sitting there actually doing some studying, even after being so firmly against the whole idea earlier. But what he finds a little unsettling is just how intensely passionate about it Juzo already seems to be. The next morning, a strange man is spotted standing at a distance and staring toward the school entrance. At the end of that school day, Juzo has had yet another day full of remarkable new things to learn and finds himself genuinely excited about the next day's lesson. He decides to head back home after that, but that is when he hears some kind of commotion nearby, so he goes over to see what is going on. He finds an athletic-looking man in a panda mask who just dropped the security guard with a single kick. People around seem to recognize him as Panda Mask, and the girls around find him funnier than anything as they pull out their phones to record the whole thing. But then all of a sudden, Panda Mask makes a move and runs straight over to the same two girls who have been giving Juzo attitude ever since he arrived and starts harassing them aggressively. As Juzo stands there watching, Nakoda reminds him of how badly those girls have been treating him and tells him he does not actually have to help them, since it is not like their lives are in any real danger. But Juzo tells Nakoda that he is far too mature a person to sit back and refuse to help someone simply because he does not technically have to. So he tosses an eraser into the air and shoots at it to create a smoke screen so that nobody can see who is actually behind it all. He then hits Panda Mask with one clean strike, and although it does some serious damage, he is surprised that it was not enough to put him down entirely. But he quickly realizes that makes perfect sense given how much his strength has dropped since he ended up in this younger body. As a desperate last resort, Panda Mask pulls out a stick of dynamite and threatens to blow everyone there sky high. But Juzo simply drives his foot straight into his groin, which drops him instantly, then flings the dynamite up into the air and shoots it before it can do any damage. Once the smoke finally clears, the two girls spot Juzo standing right in front of them and put together that he was the one who saved them. But Juzo flatly denies the whole thing, telling them it was actually some random guy who took Panda Mask down and that he himself just happened to be walking past at the right time, which leaves both girls standing there completely confused. The next day at school, things settle back to normal and Juzo's classmates are in the process of putting together a group chat. All that is left is to decide whether or not to add Juzo, but they start second guessing themselves because he comes across as such a loner and a complete oddball. But then the two girls he saved the day before walk straight up to him and ask if he wants to be added to the group chat. And while doing so, they both blush a little as they thank him for what he did for them yesterday. Juzo honestly could not care less about being in any group chat, but he does not want to let them down after they went out of their way to ask him personally, so he goes ahead and agrees to join. That night, Juzo is left completely caught off guard as his phone will not stop going off with one notification after another pouring in from the group chat without any sign of slowing down. Nakota can see that Juzo is looking tense, so he asks if he wants a cigarette to take the edge off. But Juzo tells him that he has just quit altogether because his younger body simply cannot handle cigars anymore. And on top of that, it cannot handle alcohol either. Even with all of that said, Juzo admits that he honestly feels a whole lot better than he ever used to back in his old body. He decides to sit with things for a little longer just to see how everything continues to develop. And after taking it all in, he turns his attention back to getting his homework done. That was episode 1. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.